to full service level like Galena, where we do a lot of work for them.
How is that progressing, the cutting of the cord, so to speak, that you're talking about? Is that?
It's gradual,
Okay.
and I think that's to be understood because, there's not a lot of, in a lot of these cases, there's not a lot of subject matter expertise. So there's sort of an education process and then also kind of pointing in the right direction to who a good potential partner could be for them. And Galena's been a good example of that. They've come to us, and they've said we have these ideas and we help them vet it, and sometimes they spin off services and sometimes they stay with us.
One more thing while you're, well, let me go, let's finish this
Okay.
first. Maybe we'll entertain a motion to approve these memorandum of understanding.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the memorandums for understanding for the town of Galena, the town of Millington, the Circuit Court for Kent County, Maryland, the Register of Wills for Kent County, Maryland, and the Kent County Chamber of Commerce for a one-year term ending on June 30th, 2024.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And I was just gonna mention to you, coming in here this morning, I heard on the radio that, there was gonna be another large amount of money given to local, counties and municipalities, or I assume, for putting high-speed internet into areas that, where it's underserved at the present. It was I can't remember how much it was, but it was a lot of money.
Yeah, there is a lot of money nationally coming from various pots, and we've gotten a lot of it. I thought I had the document with me, but I don't. But I can tell you that I think so far, the work April and I have done working with the Office of Statewide Broadband, I think it's called now, is somewhere around $9 million we've brought in on top of the initial investment, and that's with 2 providers. The majority of that money has gone to Talkie, about over $7 million, I think, we've gotten for them, and just under 2 for Think Big. So it's about roughly 80% went to one, 20% to the other. So we've covered a lot of areas. One area in particular that was just recently announced was that Still Pond, actually out your way, all the way out there towards Camp Taqua. Talkie got an award for that. We still have some zones like south of Rock Hall, other areas that still need to be covered, but they also fall under RDOF, which is, Talkie won that RDOF award. So they're required within, don't quote me on this, but I think it's within the first 6 years, they have to have 100% coverage of those areas, and I might be wrong about that, but they're a year or 2 years into that window already. So there are some areas that there already is funding, but the time required to build might be a little bit easier for the construction, whereas other ones like OSB, they're required to build within 1 year of the award. So it's just various timelines for each one.
Then I think what you're referring to, President Fithian, is the Governor Moore released a press release yesterday, and it's $267 million in federal funding to expand high-speed internet across Maryland, and this will be rolled out through the Department of Housing and Community Development.
And specifically through OSB and Rick, yeah.
What about the Gulch, I guess it would be west of Millington area, Gulch area? What is that?
So that,
There is some of that. There's some of that area has been.
it has. Yeah,
Taken
so we
care
did Goltz. We did the entirety, pretty much, of
Okay.
Goltz, okay? They have that option, but as you go south and you hit the Massey area.
Right.
So there was an issue with challenges in the past, okay? So they constantly frequently redefine what the definition of broadband is, okay? The federal definition, I believe, is still 25 down, 3 up, 25 megabits per second down, 3 up. But we're kind of surpassed that, in the COVID world where everybody wants to work from home, right? Like, I think that everyone understands that we need to be at least 100, and I believe that's where OSB is right now. So that area in particular, Massey, there you had wireless providers that could have met the 25.3. So it disqualified large areas. So if we said we want to do this area, it would be put up for a challenge. Somebody could come in and challenge it and then take it off the board. And that's happened over and over again for the past couple of years. Now that they've upped the requirements, those areas are opened up. Okay, and a lot of the ones, especially east of Millington, all the way to the line,
Right.
that's an RDOF zone as well. So there's already funding applied. What makes it easier for the RDOF awardee is if they can double down and get another pot of money from from elsewhere to sort of speed up the process. And that's what has happened in some areas. Okay.
Well, my only reason for bringing it up, I figured that you all were probably on top of it, but just wanted to make sure. I mean, obviously, if we can go after some of that,
Absolutely.
we've been pretty successful, as you've pointed out over the years. We want to continue to build on what we've got in place.
And there are two flavors of these grants. One is where we're the applicant, which is neighborhood grants, and that's where we do all the work. You know, we do all the paperwork, the writing, the narrative. We, you know, try and get testimonials, things like that. Infrastructure grants, which are the larger ones, the multi-million-dollar ones, generally the ISP is the applicant, but they come to us for a letter of support. So there's a point system, and to maximize the number of points you need to be an awardee, because you're competing against everybody else in the state, right? So if you get that letter of support from the county, it gives you that one last point that you need to beat out somebody who does not have the support of the community. And again, that's for every county throughout the state of Maryland. So it is very competitive. But I believe in the first 3 years, we had more awarded areas through OSB than any county in the state.
Right. And a lot of that was due to the fact that we had what they call like shovel-ready. I mean, we were already doing that type of work, and it's easy to continue to give us the grant money so that we can continue to build on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we gambled right before COVID. We submitted 7 applications, and they came back to me and said, you're out of your mind. You're not getting 7. And then COVID hit, and they said, you got them all, you know, because we not only were shovel-ready, but we rolled the dice and just put in way more, I think, than anybody else was willing to try. And, well, I guess unlucky that COVID hit, but we ended up getting that infrastructure.
Yeah.
So,
We haven't had anybody asking for a letter of support to,
not yet, no.
not yet.
And I will say that as we discussed in the previous commission and certainly this current commission, everybody gets treated exactly the same. They get the exact same letter, period. So anybody who comes to us, we've had, well, I'm not sure if I should say all of them, but we've had at least 4 different providers, and all 4 of them have always gotten letters of support from us, and they're all worded the same. So there's no preferential treatment at all for any of them. So,
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
okay.
One more.
Next
Yeah.
one. Okay, so.
Just a second. Go ahead.
Okay.
Finish up, then we'll take Mike's question.
Okay. Next item is we need to renew our virtual environment, our infrastructure that hosts our virtual servers. We're currently in a hybrid posture right now where we're trying to move a lot of our services to the cloud, but we don't have the ability at this time, I think, to move the physical infrastructure that houses our virtuals. So we need to renew it because the current appliance is out of support in October. So we would like to piggyback off the MDUIT contract, 060B24900022 for the amount of $168,080 for new virtualization software and hardware and support. And it's in the budget. Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that it is in the budget, not addition.
That's right.
Correct.
Now, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Alliance Technology Group and to piggyback off of MD Do-It contract 060B24900022 in the amount of $168,080 for the purchase of a virtualization hardware solution and 3 years of support for that system.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Hold on. Mike, you want a question?
Yeah, this may not be under Scott's job description, but how do we enhance cell service in the county? I mean, you're doing a great job in creating a infrastructure for internet, but we have a lot of holes in cell service. And is there any way that Scott or someone within government can reach out to our cell service providers to enhance our cell service here in the county? Because there's a lot of holes. And I just thought of it, since we're talking about internet and connectivity and helping out, there's a lot of holes for cell service here in the county.
So I could speak to a couple of those points. One would be that a lot of people think when you make a wireless call, it just stays wireless, right? You know, you connect to a tower and it's just tower to tower. It doesn't. It usually will go down, they prefer to have it drop down to a fiber connection, okay? So one of the things that this does is every applicant is a member of the Maryland Broadband Cooperative, okay? So generally, there's the ability for the co-op and maybe these providers to work with cell providers to bring infrastructure in here to areas where they otherwise might not have gone because there is no fiber backbone.
Right.
Okay, so that's just a possibility, it's no guarantee, right? The other thing is, as fiber to the home becomes more pervasive and you do have that high-speed internet in your home, you can, at least in your home, not while you're driving, you can switch to call over Wi-Fi, and then you'll be able to use your reliable Wi-Fi fiber-based connection from your home to make your calls. And that should alleviate your issues. But that's once you get
Yeah.
reliable high-speed internet.
Colchester's down.
Now, Tolchester does have fiber all throughout it right now.
Yeah, we do.
uh-huh.
That's why I brought up the question. You know, how do we enhance it?
Yeah, you go to your settings and set to call over Wi-Fi, and then so it'll use your home trusted network, and it should improve your performance.
Thank you.
Done, thank you, you're very welcome, Mr. Mayor.
All right. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That's an easy question. This morning.
I was afraid of that.
Next, we have Jamie Williams, Director of Economic and Tourism Development. She'll hear Arts and Entertainment District Designation Property Tax Credit.
And joining me is John from Kent Culture Alliance and Heather from Kent Culture Alliance and the Arts and Entertainment District Manager. So,
Welcome to all of you.
thank you. Okay, we're going to start with the hard one first, or I think, yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to read a little background because it does get a little complicated, and what we realized as we went through. But Chestertown's Arts and Entertainment District was certified in 2015 under a program administered by the Maryland Department of Commerce and the state's Comptroller's Office. The district encompasses 51 acres of the historic downtown area. It offers state and local tax abatements for qualified artists who create and sell their creative works in the district, and for property owners who build or renovate structures for qualified arts purposes. So the county commissioners signed a letter of support in March of 2015. The possible tax incentives, there's 3 of them. One is property tax credit, and that's on the increased assessed value, similar to what we do with the enterprise zone. So the base remains the base, and the tax credit is only applied to the increased assessed value. And that is done through the county Office of Finance. They actually process the credit, is the way that it should work. The Maryland income tax subtraction modification, that is done by the Maryland Comptroller's Office, and it's a process that they take care of. Admission and amusement tax exemption, again, that's a Maryland that's a state credit through the Comptroller's Office. So bring us to 2021, we actually had a property owner apply for the credit. And the Arts and Entertainment District Management had moved from the town of Chestertown to the Kent Cultural Alliance with a memorandum of understanding to take that over. And going back a little, so it was created when Kay McIntosh was the Arts and Entertainment and the Main Street manager. Before, actually, yeah, that's right. It was actually before that, and then she was hired to fill that position, and then it was transferred. And this all happened as well prior to the county doing an enterprise zone tax credit. So Hester is the A&E district manager, and we've kind of been working through the process. We've been talking to the local Department of Assessment and Taxation, and of course, you don't know what you don't know. No one there had any idea what we were talking about, so it took quite a while to try to work through it and for them to get us the information that we needed. And then once we got the information we needed, we started working with the Office of Finance on how much the credit should be and should it be issued. Then the Office of Finance realized we didn't have any legislation in place. So the district was approved in 2015, but it just kind of stopped there. There was a resolution by the town that said, during the application process, that said they intended to apply the full amount of the credit, which is 100% of the increased assessed value for 10 years. The county never weighed in on what they wanted the percentages to be for that 10-year period. But it was advertised on the website. We've been promoting it. I know Kay was promoting it. I've been promoting it. John and Hester have been promoting it. And as well as our state rep, Nancy, because we thought it was done, honestly. So all of that comes to the point of, what do we do with this application and how do we move forward? So I want to add another piece, is that the district must be recertified in 2025, so every 10 years. So they're getting ready to start that process, John and Hester. And at that time, we can go back and say what we want it to be and work through the process, set up a procedure and do all of that. But currently, like, we've got this one application, and this discussion is really to figure out how to move forward. We know we definitely have to do a code home rule to get it in our code of local laws. So that'll be the first part. And then we have to do a resolution that says what we want to do for now until the end, till the recertification, and then what do we want to do at recertification. So, not all counties have adopted the maximum tax incentives for the whole 10 years, and we've got a couple examples John was able to obtain from, I believe, Garrett, Queen Anne's, and they're all different. We'll definitely share those when we get to that point. But for this particular project, you know, we're recommending the full 100% credit for the 10 years be applied to this property, which is 200 High Street, and that property only. Because of all the reasons I spoke of earlier. There is one other application in the pipeline. John, Hester, and I have all talked. We do not feel that that property qualifies, so we do not think that one's going to be an issue. It's just this one specific project and application. And we can certainly, you know, part of me wants to say we don't approve any more projects between now and then. But what if somebody wanted to come and build a whole new entertainment facility? We would certainly want to be able to use that credit. So I think we should work on them as an individual case between now and recertification. And at that time, we can determine what those levels of credit should be. John?
I think the thing is that there's only been, since the inception of the A&E district in 2015, we've only had these two applications. There was no application during Kay's tenure. When we took over the A&E district in the summer of 2021, we were just processing it along the way it had been advertised and all of that, never getting an application. When 200 High Street came up, it was a particularly important one because it houses by tenancy 2 spaces of Chestertown River Arts. So the renovations done, a portion of those renovations done were directly related to an arts use within an A&E district, which is the state mandate. So then we're like, oh, great, how exciting, we get this first one, only to do, you know, a year-long goose chase to find out that it just wasn't processed after the initial approval in 2015. The town finished their portion. Whoever was involved in managing that at that time, before all of us, never went to the county for the follow-up step. We have the letter signed by Commissioner Pickram in 2015 with the intention to do it when it was approved, but the follow-through never happened. So we currently have one. We know the second application is not going to be relevant because it's not a designated specific arts use, and it's very unlikely that there's nothing that we know of in the pipeline that is, you know, happening within the next 12 to 18 months before we get to recertification. So, you know, all things considered, it was advertised, and we feel in good faith that we should try to give what was advertised to this one application.
So the question before you comes down to really, We have already signed letters of support, the county has, saying we're going to honor a 10-year tax credit, tax incentive. The question would be, do we want to maximize that at 100% for the full 10 years or some sort of other scale? And in particular, that decision will be applied to this application. Chances are there won't be another application before the research, in which time, in that time, you can come up with a different, if you wanted to change it to be, 80%, 100% for the first 2 years, 80% for the second set of 2 years, 60% or 50% for the whole 10 years, or any combination therein. But what would you like to do right now regarding
So
the legislation?
the 10 years would be retro.
No, it's
No.
not retro. It just, actually, the renovations were just completed.
Okay.
They have a half-year
So we're
tax
talking-
credit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, tax bill that we want to apply the first credit for, so this would be year one. And I do want to share that, so the renovations were done of the entire building. The entire building is not for arts purposes. So it's a little less than 80% that is for arts purposes. I'm sorry.
Other way around. It's less than a third. Because it's 2 spaces on the
No.
first floor, the rest are
Yeah,
apartments.
we might want to talk about that, because, well, we'll work on that. It's a percentage. That's okay.
It's a
per-
small section.
It's not 100%. So we didn't lose any tax revenue we were receiving before, because the base is the base. Then she improved the property. We're going to issue a credit, 100% credit, if you guys approve to that, if the commissioners approve of that. And it's only a percentage of that. Whether it's 80 or 20, I'm not real sure. We'll have to work that out, but
But the 10
Yes.
years is just until 2025.
no.
No,
No,
for
for
this
this
project, it would
property.
be
Project.
For this
for this building
property,
for 10 years, beginning
Correct.
2023.
Okay.
yes.
But then in 2025, you research the whole program for another 10 years.
And then it's up to you how all you want to lay out any portion or
Yes.
percentage as.
This project in particular will be not, we won't be reevaluating.
Correct.
Correct.
No.
Correct. Once it's
Right.
approved, it's approved
Right.
for the,
Yes.
for the period.
Yes.
And we have to move forward with a code home rule for this to be effective. But
Right.
for this conversation, if there is some sort of agreement, either this week or at the next meeting or whenever you want to make
Right.
the decision, that language will be incorporated into the code home rule so that this application can be,
Well, I'm all for moving it forward. I mean, we've signed the letter's been signed, and it's kind of a deal that you guys have been making. so
Yeah.
We gotta, I think, back you up on it.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, we could have and should have found out about this earlier and didn't. So we'll take responsibility for that. That doesn't help you all at the moment, but that is the reality. And so, if we can move it forward for this project, that would be great. We look forward to coming back to you and talking about what it looks like for the next 10 years, for the next incarnation of the A&E district, because the A&E district may indeed expand. There's talk about having it go further up High Street. And, this is an economic development tool. It really is. Part of the reason Ms. Sabatini took on this building was because this is a building that desperately needed to be renovated. She's made some great apartments upstairs. We've got people living downtown, which we've needed in Chestertown. Unfortunately, right now, it only applies to Chestertown because that's where the A&E district is approved. But, there's who knows what could happen in the future and what we might be able to do in places like Rock Hall or Galena.
So a couple of things I just want to share. In fairness to everyone involved in this situation, there's no guidance from the state. Just like with the enterprise, there's no guidance on processes at a local level. Basically, just legislation is approved, it hands down to a department, and then it comes down to and there's no coordination. Just like with the enterprise zone, we had to create it, and that's why I got involved, because I did the enterprise zone, and I realized how difficult it was just to kind of figure out all the parts and pieces that needed to be involved. So I thought we would just mirror that process, and we'll do that, with the new designation, make sure we have a process in place so that the county and the town is notified when somebody applies, because we all have to know. meaning the state needs to know, our Office of Finance needs to know, the town needs to know, and then they also get the opportunity to weigh in on that project. So we can work on a process that would work. One other thing I want to talk about county process-wise, I believe we have two components, and Shelley, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The code home rule legislation, I don't think we need to put the percentages into that language. We could do that by resolution.
It can be, it should be in the code home rule.
It is not in Queen Anne's because every time it gets redesignated, it could change. So I believe that's why they didn't include it originally. Looking at everything I've looked at, it just says that it allows for that. And then if it gets redesignated and negotiated, then they just do it through resolution.
Yeah, we would have to look at that first.
Okay.
Yes, it's my
Okay.
understanding that it would go right into the code home rule, so it was in our code of public
Yeah,
laws.
I looked at Queen Anne's County's ordinance. I didn't see it, but, you know, I don't know what the rules are for that. It just allows for it. So, I'm just thinking of the easiest way to do it so we don't have to go back and redo legislation if we don't have to.
But in 2025, we're gonna take a second look at this,
Yeah.
going for that next for any project after that.
Absolutely.
We would bring that
Maybe
forward late in 2024, late next year, as we're doing the renewal application.
And obviously, that's what it was designed for, was because, you know, it's not to give people tax breaks on just the property, but it's the
Correct.
addition.
That's right,
that
the
falls
renovation.
That falls into what qualifies.
So let me,
They'll get a break on that.
Only on the new assessed value
Right.
post-renovation,
Right.
yes. The portion of the new assessed value, not the whole new assessed
So
value.
using round number, if this property appraised for 250,000, she improves it to 300,000, the tax credit is on the $50,000.
correct.
Correct.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
And if only 40% of that is for some sort of A&E district qualifier, then it's 40% of the
They may not even get
50,000.
all the $50,000.
Right.
Depending on how it's looked.
That's the state piece.
if we change, oh, that's not,
That's
that's
not
not
the
even the,
county. No,
I
I
got,
don't
I
have
got
that
Queen
one,
Anne's.
sorry.
But if we do a code home rule now, and we say 100% for 10 years, because we want to be able to do this property, then we're gonna have to redo legislation during redesignation. So if we could do code home rule that just allows it, then I think we could agree that we'll do a resolution by property. So for this particular property, and then that way we don't have to go back and change the code home rule or legislation. Would that be a way forward?
We'll have to look into that to see the best way
Yeah.
to handle it. Work with the Office of Finance, see what they need, et cetera. So that's a decision that does not have to be decided today. We will figure out how to put it into place officially, legally, after. The decision today is just, how do you want to handle, what do you want?
For
what-
today, we're just saying we're in support of this, moving it forward. correct?
What we need today is what percentage, or in the near future, what percentage and for what years? Because we need to start moving the process forward to get this in place. So as we draft the legislation, what percentages would you like? Whether it's the legislation and the resolution, or if it's just the legislation, but what percentage for what number of years, so we can move it forward?
And also to know that that is only going to apply for the next 18 months
Correct,
until we renew, and then you have the opportunity to change that.
right.
Well, personally, I think the town has decided that would be 100%, from somebody that was a part of, was here in 2015,
Yes,
that was
right.
sitting with Mr. Pickram, I gotta tell you, that was although we didn't put it in writing,
Right.
that's what I thought it was all about as well.
That's right.
So I would have no trouble approving it, just like you stated, 100% for the part of the
2023
improvement that
right.
falls within your
On this
guidelines
particular project.
on this particular project.
Keeps it limited, and it allows us to do the homework we need to do to bring you back the good information for redesignating. but it's a good faith and
And for the record, Queen Anne's County does have the percentages in the code home rule.
it does.
It does.
All right.
Mhm.
There are 29 A&E districts around the state of Maryland. They're all dealing with this, and trust me, when we went out to look for answers, we got at least 10 different answers. So yes, the state needs to give better guidance on it, but we can work towards that when we work towards redesignation. We just want to do what we can for Ms. Sabatini at this point.
Right.
So I'd entertain a motion if,
Having heard all the information, I would like to make a motion to have staff move forward with drafting a code home rule bill for the arts and entertainment district designation property tax credit at 100%.
Second.
motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And good luck with your project.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, this one's an easy one. We do it each year. So Pirates and Wenches is coming up with the town of Rock Hall, and we usually request to use DCT transportation, and we work with the drivers through the Main Street Rock Hall organization. So we are asking for 3 buses to be utilized this year. And the letter is before you to request that. We usually have the commission president and the mayor of Rock Hall sign that letter, and the town provides a certificate of insurance, and then we organize the transportation for that festival on Saturday. So that's what's before you today for approval and signature.
And the company determines, I mean, I think Rock Hall as in the past, has always provided the drivers, and,
So in the past, they usually have a transportation committee, and they have a chair for that committee. I did
say
it,
that again?
they have a transportation committee,
Yeah.
so some volunteers that kind of organize the transportation, and they usually have a chair. I did it a couple of years ago for 2 years, and by default, I'm back there for this year until we find someone to take it over next year. So I'm the transportation chair for Pirates and Wenches this
So
year.
we'll see you next year as well.
You'll see me next year, but hopefully I'll be doing it on behalf of the chair of that committee, yeah. But
So they want us to send a letter requesting it.
they do. They ask for official request, and I've already spoken to Keith Atkins, and he's okay with it. He just needs that official request from the county and the town.
Can I entertain a motion to approve this letter of support, John?
I'll make a motion to approve the letter of support as discussed.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill Mackey, Director of Planning, Housing and Zoning, and medical-related and non-medical-related cannabis use resolution.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The item before you is in response to action by the Maryland General Assembly under House Bill 556 and Senate Bill 516 called Cannabis Reform, and that bill will be effective on July 1st, 2023. In the past, Kent County's approach to medical cannabis uses has been that for the dispensaries, it's treated as a by right retail use. Wherever retail uses are permitted by right, it's allowed. For processing, wherever industrial uses are permitted by right, it's allowed. And for growing, wherever agricultural uses are permitted by right, it will be allowed. My understanding is that's been a departmental approach. The purpose for the resolution is to give you all the opportunity to sort of instruct how you'd like this handled moving forward. Staff's proposing that for the new non-medical cannabis uses, we proceed with that same approach. That in zoning districts where retail uses are permitted by right as a general retail use, that a dispensary would be permitted by right as a retail use, handled like any other retail use. Same for processing in industrial districts, same for agricultural for growing facilities. So that's the purpose of this resolution is to just formalize that, and then we can move forward, and if people come with applications, we're able to handle them in time for the July 1st deadline. In general, we don't expect that there will be a lot of these being requested. Dispensaries will probably go to towns, that's more typical, but we'll be ready if there's applications and we can address it, so.
And this resolution will state what, where it's allowed to take place and what zoning,
It instructs the Department of Planning, Housing, and Zoning to treat a dispensary as a retail use, as any other retail use, and that it should be permitted by right in any zoning district that allows retail uses. That a processing facility would be permitted by right in any zoning district that permits industrial uses by right, and then the same with agricultural for growing.
and we went through this same process with the other, or not?
I wasn't here during the medical cannabis introduction, et cetera, so my understanding and sort of working with the team is that this was sort of handled within the department, and this was our current process, so this is just extending it from medical uses to non-medical uses of cannabis, just to use the same approach.
Medical uses, I do know we had a couple applications. Now, none of them were approved for Kent County, but we did have some, and I had never thought about it until recently, but we actually, we sent letters of support for those people, those couple applications, but.
Okay.
Which brings me to another part of, we've been requested to, for a letter of support for someone that's gonna make application
Oh.
for this.
Okay.
So it's, this resolution will set the guidelines as far as zoning goes
Right, how the department would handle.
for this use.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And how long does it take before that resolution is
My,
legal, binding resolution?
right, my understanding was, would be today, yes, sir. In time for July 1st. I think you could certainly alter that timeline if you would choose.
Okay.
The way it's written is immediately today.
But this is only county zoning, this is not in the incorporated towns.
Right,
Correct.
county only, yes, sir. And in general, these uses are highly regulated by the state. They have many, many, many requirements for security and sign-ins, at least with medical cannabis, it was highly regulated. We expect the same sort of approach. So there's lots of safeguards in place by the state about how the use itself is to be operated regarding security, et cetera.
Well, we're basically faced with a new law as of July 1st that permits this. And whether you agree with it or don't, it's law. So I feel that we need to make a motion so that it's very clear what is expected. And I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution 2023-12 to formalize the zoning approach related to cannabis in Kent County.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
The next item before you is the release of a bond. I was here previously for this item, and this body released the erosion and sediment control bond and the stormwater management bond. This is the final buffer enhancement bond. The plantings have been planted on site. They passed inspection. And just as a general information, on Friday, a certificate of occupancy was issued for the property. They paid all of the fees for the remaining landscape not covered by this enhancement bond. So the project is complete, the landscaping has passed inspection, and we're free to release the bond as requested by Avon Dixon Insurance Company. So staff recommends approval.
Well, first, I would like to compliment your staff and you on your response to these issues that have been ongoing for quite a while to resolve this in the best interest of the county and the property owner. And I'm very happy that this is totally resolved now. So I'd like to make a motion to release the bond number 107-30620 related to buffer enhancement for the project at 4846 Huntingfield Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
While we're on this cannabis issue, we had a request from an individual for a letter of support. Do we want to,
We actually have no information, and the town which is located, where the dispensary
I'm
will
not-
be
I don't-
located.
we don't know whether it's going to be located. So right now, we're being
Okay.
asked for a letter of
If
support.
we could get the information about the applicant and who do we send the letter of support to, et cetera. Right now, we don't have that information. The town in which this was located is not aware of this,
And that.
the
and-
proposed town.
Yes.
So we couldn't get that information regarding the applicant.
But if the applicant gives us their information, would we provide a letter of support?
Then that's up to you.
That's
Great.
why I was
Yes,
bringing it up.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're doing a resolution to allow it in the county.
Correct.
If someone asks us for a letter of support, are we gonna give it to them? I guess is the question.
I would be willing to give them a letter of support with the blessing of the mayor and council in that particular municipality. Only because, from what I understand, the property where this may go is on the four corners of this particular town. And from my previous career, I know what's gonna happen there on those four corners, or I suspect what's gonna happen. And I would be willing to give a letter of support if in fact
The town gives one as well.
the mayor and council agree that they are supportive of this. Because it's gonna come down to their zoning
No, I agree with that, absolutely,
and everything else, whether they're gonna allow it or not.
right.
So I guess if they're in agreement, I would be in agreement to give them a letter of support.
I understand, that makes sense, perfect sense to me.
I would agree with the sheriff regardless of what my personal feelings are on this issue. I think it's an issue that we have to deal with, it's moving forward. So,
I mean, the fact that we're doing a resolution.
Right.
Says that we're gonna allow it to take place in the county.
Right.
And
we did the resolution, and it's done, but I guess, we really wouldn't have a legal standing to not do a resolution,
no,
really, right?
Well, the state is taking into account whether or not the county or jurisdiction is interested in moving forward. I mean, that it may or may not be overridden at the state level,
Okay.
but they are taking that into consideration.
It's a form of economic development.
Well, that's the other thing,
And-
Sheriff.
Whether you agree or don't agree, I do think it's gonna create some
It's
problems.
gonna- yeah.
And I don't think the state or the county is prepared to deal with some of those problems, but it's the law, so.
Right, I agree.
so could we make a motion to approve it? Well, we're basically have approved it in the county, but if someone from the town asks for a letter of support, as long as the town agrees with it, we would agree with it.
As long as we have the support of the mayor, I don't have a
That's what
problem.
I mean, yeah. You all right with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All-
And just for the record, when I talked to the municipality in which we're kind of referencing in this conversation, I have asked to be kept abreast of any applications or requests for letters of support so that we could bring it to you immediately.
And when you did talk to them, they were not aware of
They
anything.
were not aware.
And that's the reason why I'm a little guarded about it.
No, I wouldn't want to do it
Because-
if the town was against it, I wouldn't want to do it either. It makes sense to approve it if the town approves it. And and look, I might have, when I brought this up the last time, I think I mentioned that the town was supposed to, maybe I misunderstood that they were going to or something, but I thoroughly agree with, if the town don't want it, we're not gonna give a letter of support. If the town's okay, then we're okay. And yeah, okay. Very good. Mr. Jim Miller, Director of Human Resources, FY 2024 salary ranges. Good morning, sir.
Thank you. You have the information before you, but the short version of it is that the Commissioners approved a salary increase effective July 1st, and in the past, concurrent with that, there's been an action to increase the salary ranges, not to the same percentage, but to increase the salary ranges concurrent with the salary increase. I'm actually here this morning to ask that we delay that part of the process and not move the salary ranges until later in the year, closer to when the proposed partial increase in January of 2024 comes forth. And the reason for that is we're still in the process of looking at our market position and where our positions stand relative to our competitors. And what we're finding, we're not done with that piece of it, but what we're finding thus far is by moving the salary ranges at the same time as we're providing salary increases, we're creating a compression problem where you have somebody who's been with the organization, with the county for a year, 2 years, several years, and new people coming in because of the movement of the ranges, that their salaries are very, very close together. And it doesn't recognize the effort and the longevity of the current staff. Plus, it creates some issues when we're trying to recruit, where we're really capped at what we can pay so as not to have a new person come in beyond what our current staff is already making. I want to give us a little time to have a better understanding of where we are in the marketplace and where our salary ranges perhaps should be in the market before, and we expect that we'll be able to do that and come back and provide information to the three of you before we revisit the increases for January of 2024.
Makes sense to me.
Yes, sir. I like the process.
So I'd like to make a motion to keep the salary ranges at the same rate they are currently set at for the beginning of FY 2024, and to have the topic to maybe be revised prior to the scheduled January 2024 salary increase of 2%.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Before you go, Mr. Miller.
Yes, sir.
I want to throw out something else for your consideration.
Certainly.
And this is something that I've brought up a number of times. When we give salary increases, let's say that somebody gets let's say that we give a 6% salary increase. To someone making $100,000, that's $6,000 a year increase. Somebody making $35,000, what's that, a couple $1,000 increase? So every time we do that, the difference between the haves and have-nots, I guess you could say, increases every time you do that. And I don't think anybody that works for us is complaining that's making $100,000. I hear complaints about $35,000 a year employees all the time. How do you solve something like that? If you don't want the disparity to continue to grow become wider and wider every year, or is that just the way it is? I'd like, you've got a lot of years in HR, and I'd like for you to think about it and come back and tell me what you think about that. I do remember, and what brought this up to me one time was I remember that Washington College one year gave salary raises, and if you were at the top of the pay scale, you might, these are hypothetical numbers I'm throwing out here now. You might get 2%. As you come down the salary range, maybe the next one got 3%. You come down the salary range to the bottom, maybe the lawn care people or something got 4%. I'm just throwing that out there but when we talk about compressing, there's also another issue that we're becoming wider apart from the top to the bottom on a yearly every year we give out raises. It affects, and the people at the bottom that could probably really use the extra money, it just seems to me that they get the short end of the stick sometimes. So I'd like to just have your professional opinion about that.
Sure. I can give you an off the top of my head.
You don't have to do it right now.
Okay, 'cause, I
Think
mean,
about, give us some
It
thought.
might be more time than you want to allocate for me this morning, but
Okay.
sure, I'm happy to come back and
But you
talk in
understand what
greater.
I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good.
And I think the area that I come from in public safety, they address that with like a step and grade system. You know, or like maybe the first 5 or 6 steps will be like a 4 or 5% increase annually. And then beyond that, it's 2% or 3%, whatever the case may be. And that's how that was addressed with at least public safety.
Sure.
A lot of other governments do grade and step as well. Federal government is run exclusively on grade and step, so it's already established. A lot of even our smaller municipalities and other counties do grade and step. Years ago, I'm not sure exactly when, prior to me coming on board, it was established that we would have a grade with a range, and therein lies the question.
But
And
all three
I
of-
think you
yeah.
could make an argument just in this case, and in this year with us in our budget, because we tinkered with the health insurance, there's gonna be people at the bottom of the scale again that may not see a whole big difference in their paycheck. Where the people at the top will be fine.
Yeah, true, and we talked about that as part of the budget process. But yeah, the couple of structures that you've described, the structure that you described, Mr. Price, and what Ms. Heller was talking about, I've seen all those in action for various reasons. And they all have their pluses and their minuses. In general, none of them get to the issue of pay for performance, which is a subject that I think is worthy of discussion here. Not today, obviously, but those kinds of grade and step structures belie pay for performance because they're pretty well guaranteed from year to year to year. And the question becomes then, do you want to recognize excellent performance, or do you want to maintain a structure and kind of a status quo structure? I'm not sure there's a great yes or no to that one. It's just how the organization approaches it. The federal government, I'm really familiar with the federal government structure. My brother spent 40-plus years working for the federal government, and they really couldn't come up with a good pay-for-performance structure just because it was so unwieldy when you were dealing with 60,000 people in Baltimore County with the Social Security Administration. They just couldn't figure out how to manage to performance. We might have a better opportunity to do something like that here.
Well, when you decide, when you feel like you have given enough thought, and you want to come talk to us about it, just put yourself on the agenda, and I look forward to that conversation.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're filling in, Dan, you're
So
filling
in
in.
lieu of Mike Molds, we have Dan Matson with us this
Younger
afternoon,
version of
this
Mike
morning.
I take that as a compliment.
It was meant that way.
Absolutely.
Good to see you.
You too, you too.
There are 3 items on the agenda today from the Department of Public Works. The first of which is a renewal of the contract with Earth Data Incorporated, which would be the fiscal year '24 groundwater and methane gas monitoring at Nicholson Landfill and Doolin Rubble Landfill. They're monitoring and testing the various wells at these facilities is required by environmental regulations. Earth Data has been performing work under similar contracts at these locations since 2005, so almost 20 years now, and have maintained a continuity in their testing and reporting, the calibration of their equipment that has been very beneficial to the county. This is a contract that was budgeted for in the budget, and we are requesting approval to continue their services for fiscal year '24.
I'm familiar with Earth Data, obviously, and familiar with the ongoing saga of the monitoring of the landfill at Nicholson. Where are we at in that process? I mean, I know that, and maybe I don't know how much you're aware of this, or maybe unfair to ask you this question, but you know, we're supposed to be doing, from what I understand, the last I heard, we're supposed to be for putting in a water treatment plant there to deal with this issue. Do you have any idea where we are in that process? I mean, Earth Data, only thing they do for us, to my knowledge, is they keep testing the water.
Correct.
There, but where are we with with this other project? Because
Yeah, I would need to confer with Mike about the specifics. I do know that, as you said, Earth Data's role in this is monitoring and reporting. They aren't working to fix
I'm
anything.
sure
Yep.
that's going to be taken care of, but I'm just, on the
Yes.
side, was just wondering where we are with, as far as how soon this monitoring, or this treatment facility will be put in place, or, so maybe you can take that back and
Absolutely.
check it out. Let us know eventually.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
It's in this year's budget, isn't it, Pat?
Yes.
So I think we're anticipating it's gonna be rolled out this year.
Yeah, but have we done is the design done, or are we about ready to move forward with construction? I don't know
Okay.
where the project lies.
We can get an update.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the renewal of the Earth Data Incorporated contracts and the allocation of the funds from the Environmental Operations Division's FY 2024 operating budget for groundwater and methane gas monitoring at the Nicholson and the Doolin Rubble landfills.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. The second item is for the County Roads Division. This is a change order to the 2023 roadway resurfacing project. It's a change order increasing the contract amount a little under 7% of the total contract. This results from actual field measurements and field conditions of as constructed roadways being slightly larger than shown on the county record plans that were used to scope the project. The funding for this change order would come from the Winter Roadways Treatment Supplies Fund, which were not heavily used in the FY '23 winter due to mild conditions. It's my understanding that the work associated with this change order has been completed and the quantities are final, so there would be no further increase.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the increase to the piggyback contract with American Paving Fabrics Incorporated for surface treatment services of roads and the Kent Ag project in the amount of $21,995 for a total contract cost of $363,395 under existing Howard County, Maryland contract number 4400003612.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And-
Before we get,
Yes.
when will we start the surface treatment of the roads? How far away is that? Do you know? You could let
I
us-
know some of them have already been done. John Hanson
I-
was just done.
I think it is ongoing, yes.
Very well.
Very well, I think.
Good.
Okay.
I'd like to ask county roads to do something for me. Go down Tolchester Estates, look at the road called Ohio Avenue, and find out and get an estimate, if we were to take that into the county system, how much the grading and and tar and chip that, what would be an estimated cost of that? There was a group from the Tolchester Association group was in here last year requesting to take a road, because you've been down some of those roads, and turn it into a county road. Sometime they get in, some of these roads get in shape that you can't get up and down them hardly, and there's quite a number of people that live in Tolchester Estates, several hundred really homes down there. So I'd just like, if we consider doing that, I'd like to know what the cost of that would be. It's Ohio Avenue. It's the road that runs right straight down to their public beach in Tolchester Estates. I'd like to know what it would cost to grade it and tar and chip it. And I know in order for us to take it into our system, which we don't get a lot of highway money anymore, but we do, it's based on the mileage, so there is some return on it, and some reason for us to want to do that. And I know we have to have the authority or the approval, written approval from all the landowners that abut that property. But I'd just like to see if somebody could give us an estimated cost of what that might cost.
Understood. Okay,
Thank you.
not a problem. Okay. And the final item I have on the agenda today is the award of petroleum and heating fuels delivery services for the fiscal year -- 24. This would be for diesel, heating oil, propane, and gasoline delivery services to various county buildings. A bid was held starting in May, ending in June of this year. A number of bids were received, and Dixieland Energy was determined to be the lowest responsible bidder. The bid was broken down into individual contracts for each item, and after review, Dixieland Energy is the lowest responsible bidder for each contract. So this would be a total contract amount of $33,257.55 for FY '24 petroleum and heating fuel delivery, and would be requesting approval of the contract.
Very good. I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for FY 2024 diesel, propane, heating oil, and gasoline delivery services for all county buildings to Dixieland Energy LLC for a total amount of $33,257.25.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Dan, before you leave.
Yes, sir.
At the last meeting, there was a storm water and drainage easement that wasn't signed by the deceased Miss Jean C. Payne.
Yes.
I'm happy to announce that Miss Jean C. Payne is alive and well, and I have the signature on this. I don't know who gets this or
That
who
is
needs
fantastic to
this,
hear.
but, yeah, in more ways than one, right? Yes. Absolutely.
And do you, by any chance, have a list of the roads that we were gonna do this year?
For the surface treatment program?
Uh-huh.
Not on me, but yes, that list is compiled. I can certainly
Could you let me
distribute.
know if Walnut Point Road is on that list, and if not, where it lies on the list? I know we have a list that kind of revolves and
Prioritize based on current conditions,
prioritizes.
absolutely.
I got a request from a Walnut Point Road
think how we left it, Ronnie, was we were gonna give the count, they had the roads listed, and we said, here's a lump sum of money.
Do the
You-
worst.
You do whatever was
You're-
worst, I
you're
thought was
right,
how
you're
we.
right.
And
left
that's
it.
true.
So I don't
but
know that
they
we got the list
They
to say.
probably got a list.
Right, I'm saying, I
mean,
don't know that we had.
they're,
got that.
they have a
Yeah.
list, that-
Yes.
and that's why I'm asking
Yeah.
them if that road is on there.
Where's that road?
Huh? Huh?
Broadneck?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Back here, Phil, who them live back here?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You got Walnut Point, you got Walnut Tree. So,
Yeah. And Wally Miller used to live on Walnut Point Farm, and I thought
Correct.
that road was the one, but there is another, I checked it out. and
Okay.
There
Yeah,
is
that's what I was
another
asking,
Walnut
'cause I
Point
don't-
Road.
Gotcha.
Great.
Thank you.
So to take a moment to summarize my, my homework for today, an update on the treatment system at the landfill, the status of the design, anticipated construction timeline, preparation of a cost estimate for Ohio Avenue at Tolchester Estates, and confirmation of Walnut Point Road, where that lies in our surface treatment.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a
sir.
good one. Shelley?
Okay, I have 4 items for you this morning. And the first of which may be a little bit of a conversation, and Pat is here. Pat, if you want to come up, you might be able to field some questions better than I can. But we do have a letter requesting something from the county. These are, it's a couple who lives here in one of our communities in the county. And they are requesting consideration to purchase 2 properties that are in close proximity to their current home. The 2 properties have been on the tax sale list for quite a number of years. And at face value, this seems like a pretty easy request. I know Commissioner Fithian has been here over and over again for items like this, but it is a little bit more complicated than face value. For starters, we definitely don't want to go down a path of setting a precedent where people could get properties off of the tax rolls for less than what's owed, because it might become a workaround, basically. But there are some other concerns as well, such as the county not having authority to waive state taxes. We absolutely cannot waive that at all. And the fact that if approved, this property would still have to go through the tax sale process, which wouldn't even begin until November. The 2 properties that are being requested to be purchased have a value of $45,000 according to SSTAT. And the residents are basically asking for the county to waive taxes and fees, and so that they can purchase the property for significantly less than what is currently owed on the tax rolls. Would you like to add anything, Pat?
Which is like, what, $16,000?
Correct.
Yeah, you should have a schedule there that breaks it down. It's currently outstanding is $16,165. The last time we had a situation like this, the county did agree to waive the county interest, which if you look at the schedule, the county taxes are about $6,400. The county interest is the largest portion, it's $8,100. The state taxes are $700, and the state interest is little under $539. So last time we had this come before you, we decided that we could waive the county interest and the lien interest, and we offered the sale for purchase. That would basically take the purchase price down from $16,165 to a little under $8,000 if we waive those 2 parts. And that's the only precedent that we have for waiving anything in the property tax arena. So that's kind of historically what we've done, and we've only done it once.
Well, most of the times when we're asked to waive tax interest or something, it's because the people feel like they didn't get it in time, or they
Correct.
didn't know about it, or the mail was late getting it. But this is a little different because it's a piece of property.
And
It's
this,
doing nothing for nobody. It's
Correct.
sitting on the tax roll when nobody seems to want to buy it. How many years has it been on the tax roll?
since 2011,
nobody's even purchased it.
Correct.
Has it been for sale, available for purchase?
Yes, since
Yes.
2000 and probably, I guess you had to be 2 years delinquent, so it probably went to tax sale in 2013. There's I think a schedule in your
And has been
packets.
on- And has been at a tax sale every year since then, I assume.
Yes. So the other issue that would come forward in a tax sale process is if we decide to waive this, they still have to follow the tax sale process. So if we were to waive these taxes, they could come in over the counter and purchase it, but then they have to go through the court process to to foreclose the right of redemption. So even if we lower the purchase price, they can purchase the lien, they'll go through the court process, and my understanding is that if we lower the price, at any time, the person who owns the property can still come forward and redeem the property and stop, the foreclosure of the right of redemption. So I don't think, we don't own the property.
Right.
So they would still have to go through the tax sale process, and it would lower the redemption price to the property owner. So I'm not sure if that would make a difference to the person, if they would redeem in that situation.
Personally, myself, I don't mind taking the lower amount and letting somebody that pay that price. But obviously, we do have to go through the right process. I mean, we can't waive the way we do it. I mean,
Right. So on the schedule, like I said, we had this one time where we waived something for somebody who was purchasing a property, again, that was on the books, that had been on tax sale forever, and we waived the interest, the county interest and the lien interest, and left the county taxes and the state taxes on. And I'm not sure if the property sold or not. I'd have to go back and look. I think it did. But the only thing that we can't waive is the state tax and the state interest.
Right.
And that accounts to a little over $1,300,
So this property is valued at $45,000,
correct?
these two lots. And these folks, if they want to buy this, it's $16,000 and change.
Yes,
Is that right?
yes.
Correct.
That seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, I agree.
It is a good deal.
I'm gonna make a motion, and however it falls, but I think I'd like to make a motion that we deny the fee waiver for the requests of lots 533 and 534 located in Chesapeake Landing, more specifically S/S Lanapal Road, Chestertown, Maryland. Only because I don't want to set a precedent, and we've already, the county has done this previously, and I'm just very leery about, if we do it this time, we should be doing it, consistently for everybody, if asked. And I don't think we should maybe set that kind of precedent. But that's my motion, and I don't know how you two feel about it.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
I hate to see the property just sit there, but
I know, it's,
$8,000 is pretty cheap if it all works out for them.
it's a hard issue. We have several of these properties that we've been carrying forever, and, I'm not quite sure what the answer is.
We don't
I would-
have any idea what they want to do with
I
the
would
property.
ask the guy,
I think they
the
just
ones
want
that put the
to be part of their
$45,000 on it, if they'd want to buy it. Because I expect you'd get a different answer, because they're back there and I'm sure it doesn't have water and sewer access, so it's an unbuildable piece of property back in the sticks of Colchester Estates. Chesapeake Landing,
Yeah.
excuse me.
And a lot of those properties don't perk, and there are a large percentage of the ones that are on the tax rolls.
Right.
So,
So there is no water sewer allocation?
No.
a lot of the
There is no
lots,
water and sewer back Chesapeake Landing, period.
yeah, and a lot of the lots don't perk. So that's,
Do these lots work, or?
No.
I don't know the answer to that.
It'd be sold if it did.
Yeah, because there's not many lots in Chesapeake Landing that perks, and they don't have water and sewer available, so,
But the county has gotten creative back in there in the past and done some
well, they
creative.
did with the, if they found a property that would perk, they would
Right.
allow,
Right.
3 or 4 houses to put a system on
Right,
his,
that's-
on the one
that's what I was
property.
saying, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
I'm having second thoughts.
Okay.
well, that's why I wanted to point it out,
and I
because it's,
think-
they're,
Yeah.
whoever's put $45,000 price tag on them lots, I'll bet you they wouldn't buy them for that.
I'm not sure how they're assessed. I
No,
can't speak to the
Because they're
assessment.
unbuildable, there's no water and sewer. And they probably just want to buy it to add to the property. That must border their property, I would
It does
assume.
border their
Yeah.
property. Yeah.
I almost think I would like to maybe withdraw my motion, if I can. And maybe,
Well, you
can
are,
we,
wait a minute, you already voted, so
Okay.
you can't withdraw it,
All
but
right,
you
we
can
can
make a new
Make a new
motion.
motion.
all right. Is it possible that we could get some more information?
Sure, what else would you like to know?
I'd like to know whether the lots
Perk?
would perk, and they probably won't, like you say. And are they currently being maintained, or is it all grown up? And what the intention of these folks, it sounds like they just want the extra property.
It's adjacent to theirs
but
I
I'd-
think they
I'd
just
like
want
for
it.
some clarification on that,
on their.
on their intent, on what they want to do with the property.
Okay, I can get that
And
information and
I'll
come
make
back.
a motion that we ask Pat or someone to do, collect all this information and bring it back to us.
Okay,
Because if they don't perk, they're probably not worth $45,000.
No, they're
And
not.
I'd rather see them maintained by a property owner,
And we would get something out of
Get
it.
something.
and we would get something out of it. Because,
all right,
so, does
Do
that
we
make
need
sense?
to,
yep.
We ought to, we better make a motion.
I'll make a
to
motion that-
Withdraw the last motion or something.
Well, you can actually let that one stand for right now, because you can make another motion later after you get information. If it were me, I would just make a motion for more data collection, and then with that data collection, you could reevaluate the question again.
I'll make a motion for more data collection.
I will collect the data.
And we can
And a
reevaluate.
second, motion a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next three items are a little easier. The first one is from Gail Webb Owens, the Executive Director of the Eastern Shore Heritage Incorporation. She is asking for a letter of support so that she can apply for what is typically an annual grant application for Eastern Shore Heritage. And it is going to Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, and this is for a management grant and a mini block grant. And the mini block grant is actually a really fun one, because they re-grant the money to smaller entities within Kent County to help with tourism. And the various small little mini grant opportunities might include interpretive materials or diverse exhibits. So the request is for a letter of support for the grant application.
I'll make a motion to approve the letter of support for the Eastern Shore Heritage Incorporated grant applications as presented.
second?
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Next, we have a request from Bill Webb, and what this is our annual certification for funding of the Health Corps Public Health Services funding that the county gives to the local health department, the county Department of Health. So this is just certifying to the state what we are giving them in FY '24.
I'll make a motion to approve the FY 2024 Core Public Health Services Funding Agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
And finally, there is a letter for your consideration that would be written to Deputy Secretary Brian Moroz of the Maryland Department of Health, and this is for thanking him for attending our work group session at the Upper Shore Community Mental Health Campus, and we're basically deciding what to do with that campus. So we would just like to reach out, say thank you for listening, and we look forward to working with you in the future. It'd be nice to have a motion.
A motion to send the thank you letter as described.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, you're gonna fill in for Miss Bonnie Pearsall, our inspector.
I will fill in for Inspector Pearsall. We have two items to present today. One is for information and one is a request for your approval to accept a license modification for Chestertown Natural Foods. And the
For who?
Chestertown Natural Foods.
Oh, I got you.
And they've met the requirements and provided the documentation needed to replace a member on their license.
Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the license modification application for Chestertown Natural Foods, LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. And you were kind enough to extend a contingency as they did have an untimely death of a licensee, so they have worked at a fast pace to get that corrected and adjusted to meet those requirements. And the last item I have is just an FYI. There was a second referral of a retail establishment that has sold tobacco to a minor, so we have, when you have a repeat offender, there's an opportunity to refer that establishment to the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Commission. We have went ahead and followed that process through and referred the case.
Thank you.
Okay?
And if you heard what Sandra said, it used to be the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, but
Right.
now they've added the
Yeah.
cannabis. So the state is moving forward with, on their end as well.
Okay, time for public comment or media review.
We've got
Excuse me.
two appointments there,
We okayed them to
one for economic.
Okay, hold on here just a second.
Those are just signatures. You don't need to,
They're just
there's no
letters.
action.
That's just signatures. We don't have to bring
Okay.
that
Right,
up.
yes.
Public comment, media review. John Massey? Yes. Now, everybody pay attention. Now, this man's here every meeting and seldom says anything, so this has got to be important.
They're important or we're in trouble. One
Either,
of the two.
we could be in trouble.
Okay.
John?
I'm John Massey, 100 East Campus Avenue is where I live. I also own 13188 Massey Road, which is within the 1 mile 301 corridor. And I am a member of your zoning board of appeals. After the last meeting, when you guys were doing your best to save the taxpayers' money with the jail and the meals and all, it got me thinking. I did some looking. There are 196 Airbnb properties listed in Kent County. There are 300-plus vacation rental by owners. Both of those systems collect Maryland state tax, but they do not collect Kent County short-term rental tax. But they do collect Anne Arundel, Baltimore County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Worcester County, Baltimore City, and Annapolis short-term rental taxes. Now, I think we should look into, I don't know how it has to be done, to get them to start collecting that 5% tax that is due to the county taxpayers. I don't know.
Right now, it is up to the property owner.
It's up to the
remit.
property owner.
Yeah.
And if you ask a property owner that has an Airbnb about taxes, they'll say, well, Airbnb collects them. They don't realize that they owe the county 5%.
So
So-
would this come from Airbnb or the property owner?
So right now, the way our legislation for lodging tax is written is they are supposed to be paying, and they have been contacted. Jamie's been working very closely with a lot of the property owners to ensure that they understand the law, and she's given them the forms that they would then fill out and remit to the Office of Finance, to Pat Merritt's folks. If they want to be advertised on our county website, they have to show that they have been paying their lodging tax as required. There are over 38 38 different platforms where people can advertise properties, and this is part of the problem. Number one, typically speaking, Airbnb, VRBO, those larger platforms don't want to talk to Kent County because it's small peanuts. For them, they do talk to the bigger counties because they have a bigger stake in the game. They have more pull, basically. And the problem is where, if we can get in with Airbnb and VRBO, and I'm not saying that we can, but if we could, then, like I said, I know that there's at least 38 different platforms. Those are the two big ones, but how do we get to all of them? I'm not even sure which ones are being used in Kent County. A lot of times, there are some complications as well. A lot of times they are LLCs, so there's no person we can go after. It's a LLC, and maybe it's from North Carolina, so we have trouble tracking that down. We've tried. So it's something that we are currently fighting, and the state is also fighting on the state level. This comes up during MACO conversations at the legislative committee meetings frequently, is how can we get state legislation to really make them pay attention to all the jurisdictions.
There's nothing we can, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's nothing we can do countywide to make the people in Kent, or the renters in Kent County?
We've been trying.
Pay
We've been
attention?
trying.
Okay.
It's, I mean,
And the
Jamie is
holdup
here
is-
if you,
And the holdup is what?
it's an honor system, basically.
Is it an honor system with the hotels and motels?
There you go.
It is, really. I mean, they submit the forms to us, and we've never had any trouble with them. If they want to be advertised on our website, they have to be in compliance with the law. If they don't want to advertise on our website, I mean, that's the struggle.
Because John, you're the first one that's ever publicly come in here and raised the issue, but I can tell you, I've heard it, I hear it every once in a while, and I never did have a real clear answer of why they don't pay the hotel tax like everybody else.
All right, thank you,
Thanks, John.
It definitely is a complex issue. First, I'm not even sure if we get a remittance from any of those sites. The reporting is complex. There's no addresses listed on these sites. It's just a vicinity. Each town, and so 5 towns in the county, we all have different regulations. Some people, one town makes them a business and they have to get a business license. Another town classifies them as a rental and does a rental inspection. So what we've been trying to do in the past years is awareness and education, as Shelley had mentioned. So we have put things out on Facebook, we put stuff in the Tidewater Trader, and we've had people come in and say, hey, we saw your ad, we didn't know we needed to pay this, so now we're coming forward. So now what we're working on, with the addition of Rose to our team, she's had time to actually go through and help us. We started a spreadsheet of all of the ones, and she's gone through Airbnb and VBRO so far. As Shelley said, there's 38 different platforms. But what we'd like to do, we'd like to attack it on two separate areas. One is try to get the regulations in sync throughout the county and the towns so that we're all together. The other part of it is listing them, finding out what their address is, contacting the homeowners, and then working with the towns to try to figure out, but there's got to be communication. For example, the town of Chestertown has a registration process, and they've had it for several years now. I just recently received one registration. I know there's got to be other ones registered in the town of Chestertown. I've never received anything from Rock Hall, who requires them to have a business license, saying these are the Airbnbs with a business license, so that we can then cross-reference. So it's a very cumbersome process, but we are working on it. So fast forward, what Rose is doing is she's writing down the amount per night on her spreadsheet so that we can kind of track just one night's revenue, what it would mean to the town and/or the county. And then what we'd like to do with that, once we get it more finalized, because it takes a long time to do this, it's very tedious, to be able to present it and see if we can afford a platform such as Granicus is one, and then GovOS has platforms that basically do this work for you. And they have the expertise of going out and scrubbing all of these websites and platforms and getting that information, identifying the property owners, sending out letters, collecting they will even collect the tax and then remit it to the town. So this would have to be a collaborative effort between the town, the county, Economic and Tourism Development, and the Office of Finance. We would all have to work together to make this thing work if that's the path we choose to go. But I will say it's about a $15,000 a year price tag for the software. And that's why we want to make sure that the revenue is going to cover that and then some. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's,
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
So
can
what,
you keep us abreast of how you,
Absolutely.
what
Good
you
luck
find
with-
out?
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
some municipalities across the country, not just in the Kent County, but across the entire country, some municipalities require basically a license or a permit to operate a short-term rental facility.
So here's my knee-jerk reaction to that, because I've been out there and heard it, and I've sat up here and heard it. Anything, and I'm in agreement with trying to do something, but anything that we attempt to do, it's gonna be, oh gosh, Kent County again doesn't want us, which is not at all true,
Correct.
but that's out there. So anything we try to do, that's what whoever owns this house is going to do. So we're gonna have to tiptoe around that. I think that no matter who it is, they will do. I mean, unless it's a volunteer basis. I mean, I know if I had one of these things, I would gladly volunteer paying more taxes. No, nobody's ever gonna do that.
Well, see,
Nobody's ever
and
gonna.
here's an interesting, we've received information that VRBO is collecting it on behalf of Kent County, but we haven't seen a remittance at this point. So I don't know if they've just started
Right.
or not, but we're very much researching. So one thing that we could do, or one thing a municipality could do, because we then take whatever's received that is generated within the municipalities and give it to the municipalities. One thing that they could do is they could monitor which properties within their limits are short-term rentals and require a license or a permit. And the only way it gets renewed the following year is if they demonstrate that they've paid our county Office of Finance the tax. But that requires enforcement. They have to have somebody going out to the house. They have to have somebody, verifying addresses. They have to have, what are their restrictions? How strict are they going to be? Because if it's a business, they're probably not in a commercially zoned property. So now they have to change their ordinances because, people want to stay in residential communities, so it's probably going to be in a residentially zoned.
That's an
District.
issue that I've heard as well, is some of these things in a community, a lot of times when people come on vacation, maybe they're staying up later or outside making a little bit more noise than
Absolutely.
someone in the community would
Right. And parking.
appreciate, and parking as well.
So how much does the municipality want to dive into this? How deep do they want to go with restrictions? And then
And
who's going to
Jamie just
enforce
said
it?
that the software costs $15,000. You'll never make me believe there's not gonna be personnel involved in it as well. So you gotta have to have some enforcement. So, I remember one time they were deciding that, down there, that little swimming pool in Rock Hall, they wanted to hire somebody else so that to take the money from the people using that little swimming pool. And I'll never forget Billy Short. was a commissioner at the time, and he said, well, how many people go there? And I forget what the number was, but it certainly was not gonna pay for that. So what the decision was, let's just let them in for free. We don't have to worry about it, because it was gonna cost more to hire somebody to take the money, collect the money, and run the thing than what we would have took in. So we just said, well, just make it free and you don't have to worry about it. And that was the simplest way to get around it, but.
It's definitely a delicate balance, but keep in mind that we also need to be fair to our, that representatives are in.
No, it's
That
a,
are playing by the rules.
it's a legitimate argument. There's no,
They should be paying it.
there is a legitimate argument that they should be paying if the other host. If you have a rental tax fee, people that rent should have
They
to
should be
pay
paying
the
it.
tax. But it's more complicated when you get trying to initiate it. Well, good luck, and we'll wait and hear
Yeah, there's more.
Well, I
how
think,
you.
yeah.
Jamie's been
more to
working on
come.
it.
Well, I think, I mean, it's a great, right.
Yeah, we're working on it, and like I said, especially in trying to get the whatever the county decides to do, or whatever the town.
That would, I think, is the key right there.
If it was all the same, it would make it so much easier, so.
Look, in Rock, I see it in Rock Hall, there's companies that people who have homes and want to rent them out while they're not here, they go to this individual and they handle it all. I mean, it's no problem to find out down there what's going on, and I'll tell you, it's a lot of places in the town of Rock Hall.
Hall is about 50% of the properties.
What's that?
50% of the properties is the estimate at this time of properties are being leased as Airbnbs.
I would not be surprised, yes.
Particularly on big weekends. I know of people that I've worked for that move out of their house on Pirates and Winches
That's right.
to,
Right, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be a
Absolutely.
combination of. I mean, even if I'm a renter, I can put my property up without the property owner knowing. I can put it on one of these platforms, and on big weekends, I can go back and live with mom and dad for a weekend and have renters take the property. Seriously, with my furniture, yes.
John, our answer is stay tuned. Okay?
we hope so. We might not be.
Mike Wall, next one on the list, you wanted to say something?
Just looking for a Kerwin update, because I haven't been here in a while to create havoc and discontent on Kerwin.
Yeah, but we've still got your email.
Yeah, well, it would seem,
And I don't mean that in a negative way. Listen,
No.
The issues that you've raised, or we've raised, are doing nothing but getting worse all the time.
Right.
The estimates, the how's it gonna work, you can't turn hardly, 1090 AM radio this morning, they were all wound up about Kerwin on there, and it's gonna be an issue in years to come, like next year.
yeah, it would seem that the Main Street media has finally caught on. They're only 4 years behind.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, now all of a sudden, people are realizing that no one really knows what this is going to cost. They know it's going to cost more. Well, they've been saying that now for a year. But I don't see any action, even though the governor was here on June 5th or 6th or whatever. Yeah. I don't see any action. We're now 5 months before the next General Assembly session. Whatever they need to do, because Kerwin is legislated into being. It's an unfunded mandate. Whatever they have to do has to be legislated into process. So whatever they're going to do, however they're going to attack this, I can't find a better word than attack it. But to redo it, pause it, whatever. I haven't seen any action. I haven't seen any action by Governor Moore, neither by Ferguson, Senate President Ferguson, or House Speaker Jones. And they're the three people that have to come up with something. The Republicans that were against this from the very, very beginning, they're handcuffed. If we have any of our District 36 guys, and maybe we should have them come in soon, because they didn't give us a legislative update, but they're handcuffed. If the conservatives with both chambers, Maryland chambers, try to bring up something negative, the backlash is, well, you're not for kids, you're not for education. They're behind the eight ball here. And so you really can't expect neither the District 36 guys nor any of the other conservatives in both chambers to do anything. It's got to come from the leadership within Annapolis. I don't see anything, and I don't know how you do. You spoke to Moore, and he said he knew all about it. Well, okay, but what are you doing about it?
Well, he didn't tell me he knew all about it. When I talked to him about our situation, and I'll be quite frank, I don't think we'll be doing it next year. I just don't see how we would be able to do it, and it might. And I relayed that message to him. I said, look, Kent County wants to be a team player. I said, but the problem we have with the whole Kerwin issue, number one is, it's driven by that wealth formula that kills us, and no one will talk to us about it. I said, so how do we get anything done about the wealth formula if the first thing they say is, we're not discussing the wealth formula?
Right.
And that's the end of it. And we're told that when we go to Annapolis. We've been told that by people don't bring up that wealth formula. That's what drives us, that's what kills us. So I relayed that message to him, and I said, Governor, we want to be a team player, but I'm going to tell you, we're not going to be able to play with this. We're not going to be able to do it. And he just threw his hands up and he said, you're not by yourself. Believe me, something's going to have to happen. That's all I know. So
I'm concerned.
I've heard them on television or on radio talking about they should call for a special session of the legislature to deal with it, which I think would be an absolute perfect start.
Appropriate,
So,
absolutely. But it hasn't been done.
It has not been done yet.
See, I'm concerned that, and I think I may have written this to you guys, that we're going to get the rhetorical kick the can down the road metaphor. Moore's running for president, no doubt about that. He's on every talking head show on every Sunday morning. He's going, whether it's a 2024 election or 2028 election, he's gone, okay? So by 2028, we're going to get a new governor. But I don't, he supported it. A lot of people have supported it, but the same people that have supported it now have to step up. You know, leadership is, you come up with a pretty good program and you start implementing it. Great leadership says, you know, we instituted this program, but it's working out not exactly how we planned it. We need to pull back. And that's great leadership. So we've got leadership, but we don't have great leadership. This is just a bad situation, and every year it's just going to get, as we know. I'm talking to the choir here, but every year, I'd like to ask you guys a question. When I wrote that op-ed in Kent County News, how many of you guys were contacted by people who said, didn't know anything about this? Holy crap.
0.
I was contacted by a couple of people, and it surprised me that they didn't know anything about this. I don't want to put a scare tactic into this, you know, and that was one of the things that Kent County News brought up to me.
Hey, Kate, do you have somewhere to be, or I'd like to ask you to maybe stay if you can. I want to respond to your email. Okay?
You're
I'm
going to
sorry,
the
Mike.
principal's
No, that's
office.
quite all right. One of the things that Kent County News was apprehensive about that op-ed was that I was going to create a panic. We need to create a panic. We're looking at our real estate taxes here going up by, at the very minimum, a factor of 2.5. And that's at the very minimum.
Mike,
Huh?
I appreciate everything you're saying. It's not sustainable. I mean, at some point in time, I understand what you're saying, I do, but at some point in time, we're gonna have to do just what up with Cecil County or something. We just can't do it, and then the chips are gonna have to fall where they may.
And
That's
not
where
out
we're
of-
at.
So we have a worst-case scenario plan.
That's, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't tell everybody in this county
We're
that your
probably gonna-
taxes are gonna triple. You can't, I mean, then what?
We know we can't do what it's
It starts a
asking us.
movement.
Absolutely, well, I'm not saying that it doesn't start moving, I'm just telling
And
you
there's
that,
been a movement that's been talked about.
that's right,
So
Hey,
that's right.
So we're not gonna roll over.
whether it's going to,
I know we're not.
Now, I do
Yeah,
wanna-
that- That's not my intent. You guys won't let that happen.
I do want to add, though, that last week, the governor was here again, and he was doing basically, it was an ag tour of Kent and Queen Anne's County. And we kind of really didn't know. I was kind of surprised by it. We were supposed to have been invited somewhere. Somebody forgot to tell us. I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I don't know that, I think we were invited. But I went to Casey Owens. He visited in Kent County, to my knowledge, Willard's Agri Service, where he ate a very fine lunch of Langenfelder pork, by the way. And then he went to Roy Cruz, and then he went to Casey Owens. And I visited at Casey's because I'm friends with Casey and my son works there. And the governor was very, he wanted to educate himself on agriculture. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm thinking that we can somehow, because Casey's farms are all in preservation, or all but one. And Casey brought that up, and he discussed that with the governor as I was standing there. I didn't really I talked to him very little, but it wasn't I was just there as a guest. But I'm just making you aware that the governor's been here, he visited some farms, he sees Kent County, and I told him it's scaring me a little bit that he's showing up as much as he is, to be quite honest with you. But maybe this is fodder for our fire with this whole wealth formula, okay? I don't know that, I'm just telling you that they're, hopefully we can make those things work.
Even if
But
they
the other
leave-
thing that we have to think about is, the governor is only one, it's the legislature that we really need to get to. It's the legislature. I mean, the governor can say something, but he's only can do what the legislature, to a certain degree.
Yes, but Ferguson and Jones are the ones that
I agree.
put forth the legislation in the name of the governor. So we know where that all lays. That's fine. Regardless of whether they do something with the wealth formula or not, just to pause Kerwin for a redo. Just to pause it. They're all complaining that it was already paused because Hogan vetoed it, and they had to override his veto. And so the implementation of Kerwin actually is 2 to 3 years behind where they really wanted it to be. Okay, we would have been further along in debt at that particular point in time. But the whole idea here is to have someone at least say, yeah, we really need to take a look at that and initiate legislation to pause the implementation. The AIB is just going at this full bore. They're at 100 miles an hour. The Accountability and Implementation Board, they're at it. They're hard at it. And that's the first place, really. The Accountability and Implementation Board is the first step to halt the whole process, and no one has stopped them. They are full bore going at it. They're approving all of the plans. They're sending plans back that are not conducive to what they want. They're not stopping one iota. And that's where it really needs to be. That's where the pause button needs to be hit. And I don't see anything happening. I know you guys are working on it. I truly do.
But look, we're gonna do the best we can as far as playing by the rules and stuff till it comes to where we can't play no longer, and then we're gonna have to make a stand somewhere.
Okay.
And we're hoping that something happens in the meantime.
Hoping,
And
yeah.
we were emailed that what was Cecil County, or Harford County, just funded the MOE this year, correct? I mean,
Yeah, Hartford.
Harford. So,
There were several.
Yeah, well, they just had a poll.
And
That,
it kind of drives me a little bit crazy when you read some of the articles where even us locally, that the Board of Education had to make all these cuts and stuff, when the truth of the matter is they ended up with over $1 million in new money going into, so it's, making cuts to a wish list is
Yeah.
not like making cuts to a budget.
right.
I mean, we had a wish list of $9 million in new proposals in our budget that we had, but we still, things went ahead. It's not like you're taking something away when you just cut your wish list down.
Right.
Anyhow, well, More to come.
More to come.
Anyone else in the audience
Thank you.
have anything to say, or
Obviously.
comments, or whatever? But,
Ms. Gray, would you like to come forward?
I would like to just comment on Kate's email that you sent to all three of us. I think it's an interesting concept, and I would be willing to have a conversation to talk more about what we could maybe do. The only potential issue that I see that might be a stumbling block is the current location has all the infrastructure there, all the towers, and what I'm talking about is, I got an email, I'm assuming the other two did as well, regarding some space that might be available for rental. The problem is that the infrastructure is gonna cost an awful lot to probably move that. But I think it's worth having a conversation about.
There's a lot of details to be discussed, things that I didn't know, and I think I tried to portray that in that letter to say, I don't know what I don't know, but, you know, building a new building or portion of a building can be, you know, extremely costly, and maybe there's another option, even if it's a temporary option, you know, or portions of what you need are able to be housed in certain areas or not. So, you know, we're open to different ways to be creative about it. Thank you.
thank you.
Hope I didn't make you late for your lunch date.
And Mike, listen, we appreciate your interest in this, believe me, and it's not going unnoticed, and there will be some times that this will be the main topic of conversation.
Well, now, there's more than that, but
Yeah,
we
that-
appreciate, those emails are very informative. I mean,
Yeah,
they're really-
and we appreciate it. Your interest is not unnoticed. With that, I guess we have looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sorry.